Yes, it's we share a bit of history, Judith, and
Yeah.
I'm quite proud to say that I was one of the people that got to experience TRTP before it became mainstream.
Yep. Yes. We got together in 2017. And so, Tim, you've had quite the journey. You had an interesting early life, unusual. Can you just give us a brief rundown on how you got to the point where you're actually a civilian, having been in special forces?
Okay, so I joined the Special Forces in 2004 in a very unique scheme, direct recruiting into Special Forces. Up until that point in military history, you had to spend 2 years in a regular infantry battalion before you could even apply. But essentially, the government knew war was coming, so they had money but no sort of bums on seats. So they started this program where you could, as a civilian, if you passed all the right tests, then apply into Special Forces. And so that was in January 2004. There was a lot of resistance to the idea of civilians going into Special Forces, but it wasn't until Afghanistan kicked off that we, showed that we could do everything that everyone else could do, and they became sort of a fan of the scheme.
Right. And so, how long were you in the forces for?
Between 2004 to 2010, I did my deployments to Afghanistan, East Timor.
Yes. An intense time, I'm sure.
Well, everyone has their own kind of stresses. I never tried to be tough try to big note myself. I just thought, well, if something's impacting my sleep, then it's a problem. And it wasn't the combat in that space that created the trauma per se. The combat kind of imprinted the regimentation that was in my head, but trauma for me was actually I was subject to bullying within the Defence Force. And it's a unique form of bullying in the way that people that have rank, they kind of own you. So if they want to muck you around, man, they can muck you around, 24/7, day and night. And so from that space, that's where I would say most of my trauma, my anger, my sleepless nights, my addiction to alcohol and pills came from because there was something inside of me that I simply wasn't dealing with.
Yeah. And life and death situations where you don't have the control.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing, not having control, feeling like someone else is in control. Yeah, that's massive.
Yeah. And so you find yourself back in Australia, back as a civilian. That transition from defense to being a civilian is a huge challenge. Can you say a little bit about that, Tim?
Sure. Well, transition is massive. So remember how I mentioned about regimentation? You work really hard so you can uh, work as part of a team, essentially. And regimentation gets a bit of a bad name. Everyone's like little toy soldiers, but imagine 100 humans all working as one seamlessly. Like that's what regimentation can do. But that takes a certain headspace, takes a certain amount of training that once you disconnect from that hive mentality and you're in civilian street, um, everything seems to frustrate you because not everyone's working in that
Ah,
being aware of others.
yeah,
And you've had to slave, sacrifice, and suffer to work in with others. So if you see someone who's, say taking up the whole aisle in the shopping center, you're like, it just blows your head out. It took me years to not go to the very end urinal in the public toilets because normally there's 100 people coming in behind you and you've got to go all the way to the end so all those other guys can come in and fit in with you. so there's all these things that are going on. And in fact, I was in Canberra last week in Parliament House talking about transition and how it's finally being addressed. I do some work with Gallipoli Medical Research, and we did a massive study addressing transition because it had been this massive elephant in the room that, you know, the diggers would talk about, but no one would sort of address. So yeah, transitioning, and I guess if I was to put it in simple speak, you've been trained to swim in the ocean, you've grown fins on your feet, flippers, but then you go on dry land and you've worked so hard, and it's really hard to move around with flipper feet, but you've worked so hard to get those flipper feet, you don't want to get rid of them, even though it's not working for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that in itself, it can create, I mean, incredible stress, which in
Well, you don't
itself
fit
is
in.
traumatic.
You just don't fit in, and you feel all alone. You're the only person going through it. No one, and you've got all these unspoken words in your heart, and they become like rocks, and you stop feeling stuff. Um, and you just want to feel something. So I used to drink a lot of alcohol just so I could feel something, feel connected, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a point where a lot of people suicide. I mean, our suicide rate is crazy with veterans.
Oh, well, I mean, if I could speak to that,
Yeah.
Judith, uh, my goal
Done a
was to,
lot of work in that arena. I
yeah,
mean,
well,
the original Mates for Mates. And
yes, yes. So my goal was after I started, you know, seeing that this was a real problem amongst veterans, my goal was to save 40 veteran lives from suicide. And I didn't care if I worked the rest of my life to do that, but that was achieved within 12 months because I saw two things that the mainstream didn't see. And that was, it doesn't matter if the pain's, you know, emotional or physical, it'll get to a certain duration or intensity where it transforms into loneliness. And loneliness is, we're not built for it. That is like the worst pain anyone can be in. We're supposed to be social mammals. You know, Judith, if you've got my back and I've got yours, then everything else is a very small detail. So feeling all alone and isolated, you can't drop your guard for a second because if something bad happens, it's going to be your fault because you haven't seen it. And you can be around relaxed people, but that makes you more ramped up because if something bad happened, they're not going to see it. So you have to ramp up for them.
ah,
And simply speaking to the isolation that these men and women were experiencing and breaking that isolation, and then understanding when you've had your guard up for so long, you're not sleeping. So two things I addressed, and two things I had as an indication of success in all the programs I created was improvement of sleep and feeling like they're connecting back into others. And if you could knock those two things out, then they already had 98% of everything they need inside of them. For me, it's quite a big mistake to think that, you know, if I'm going to help somebody, oh, I've got to do this, this, this. No, they've got most of everything they need inside of them. All we're doing, if you say you're a healer, is reconnecting those parts so they can do what they're born to do, which actually segues quite nicely into my experience with TRTP.
right. And before you came to TRTP, you must have tried a lot of things,
Oh, don't get me started.
and we won't go to the to that point where you were nearly violent with a therapist.
Oh yeah, no, that was, you know,
Yeah. So you tried all different types of therapy, different types of healing modalities.
oh, what I discovered is there's a whole economy based on me being unhealed and disempowered. A whole economy based on it. There's a lot more money to be made by people being disempowered and disconnected from their own sovereignty, from their own, you know, yeah. And I could have spent
Yeah.
my whole life on that hamster wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tragic and it doesn't work. So you came, do you want to tell the story of how you came to, that
Oh,
we
look,
came to connect?
yeah, no, good point. So every week, and like I said, I was working in veteran charities and research foundations. Every week, there's always some person coming in going, hey, I've got the solution, right? And I really don't pay that much attention to it because it just happens all the time. And these people are, it might have worked for them, but it doesn't work for others. But you came recommended to me by a very trusted friend. And I'll drop her name. Her name was Julie Mason.
Mm-hmm.
And because I trusted her, I believed it. Well, I was open to the idea that PTSD could be solved within 3 or 4 sessions. And initially I'm like, oh, this is bull. But Julie did recommend this and I trust her. Can I trust the person saying this, which was you at the time? And I thought, well, for the sake of others, I should check this out. And so, you know, that's how I got to you from a trusted source. It doesn't, you know, and the way it works is this: most people, they normally leave their mental health until everything's about to be destroyed around them, you know. So they then reach out to whoever's around the place, and whoever you can grab within a day or two might not be the best one for you. And to be honest, most psychologists don't understand. They study for 7 years, and that's hard work. Bless them for doing that. But no one tells them that the trauma goes down deeper than the words can reach. You know, it's like they're trying to shoot a target with a gun that only shoots 200 meters, but the target's 2 kilometers away. So many veterans I know, they say they try to get help. The help didn't help. In fact, it made it worse. And you know what? I'm never going to do it again because it took a lot of effort to go and see that person, and it just made it worse. And I was so and it's like they just don't get it. You're like, you're not hitting my targets. You're not even getting close. But then they'll just go into this rabbiting of, oh, but this is this and this is proven. And bro, I'm like, you're not hitting the targets. You're not even getting close. You know, so there's this frustration that then has people withdrawing into their own isolation because they're already feeling alone and isolated. But in our isolation, a lot of veterans drop off the map because in our isolations, we can self-justify everything, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just backtrack a little bit from that very important point of disconnection. We'll come back to that because it's being alone in our distress that it just does your head in. Let's talk about the experience. What's it like to be in the throes of what is titled, what is labeled PTSD?
Well, if you ask me, I was fine. I just had to drink half a carton of grog before I spoke to my then wife because this increment, it doesn't happen. So, I mean, sometimes it can happen rapidly, but to me, it was just bit by bit by bit, worse, 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 worse. And I just like, okay, it must be normal to drink half a carton of grog before I can speak to my then wife. And I call her my then wife, not my ex-wife, because I stand for a positive future.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as the important parts of my life were kind of working, everything else could have gone to hell. And if someone pointed out, hey, Tim, you're struggling in this area, I'd just repoint them to all the things I am doing well. And that's a very guy thing. Like we have this idea that as long as we're doing certain things well, people value us for those things. You know, everything else can go to hell. And if you point out those problems, I'll just point you to the stuff I do well. And so it seemed scarily normal, even though I wasn't sleeping, but that was an accumulation as well, and it became normal. I was drinking a lot, and that was an accumulation. This crazy crap seems normal when it sort of creeps up over time, and it certainly didn't start like that. But I could definitely see that, you know, there were times my then wife was saying, "You're not the husband I married."
Yeah. And the anger.
Oh yeah.
That trauma rage is quite a different thing from the slow burn of irritation, frustration, resentment.
Oh, if you want to find out how internally balanced you are, have a look at yourself when you're in traffic.
And traffic was...
A lot of veterans laugh when I say that.
And that's an interesting one, traffic, because you were when you came to see me and you had to drive about an hour and a half,
Yeah, I didn't like
And
that
that was a
idea.
big challenge for
Yeah.
you. You had to really steel yourself to actually drive.
Well, driving to an unknown place, um,
Ah,
that going from, I didn't know you, and you could just be another person that was going to screw me over.
yep.
So and understanding this energy play here, it was a way that I turned a 90% non-attendance rate into a 90% plus attendance rate by understanding that your mind's like a garden. Whatever you water grows. And I was watering the weeds of stress. And those weeds of stress grow, 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 but then eyeballs pop out of them and they become sentient. They actually become aware of the things that you do that feed them and aware of the things that you do that starve them. So if you're about to do something empowering, they kind of catch on to this about 3 days beforehand. So I noticed in all our programs previous, before I realized this, about 3 days beforehand, we'd have this massive drop off because the stress weeds are saying, oh, something positive and powerful is coming. This is going to kick us out of the garden. We will mess this person up, take their sleep away, take away their, and they don't know it's happening. They're just like, oh, I don't really want to. It's easier if I don't. Okay, so it's a bit like before you say do exercise, there's that part of you saying, I don't want to do it. Let's do it later. They're the disempowered parts of your head knowing that you're about to become powerful and they're about to be kicked out. And those stress weeds, as I call them, they scream the loudest before they die.
Yeah.
And so there was all this stuff I was up against before I even drove there. And I was using the drive as an excuse.
Mm.
If someone told me, hey, you're going to get $10 million if you drive 90 minutes, I'd be like, in a dream, right? So it's not the actual act, it was what was getting attached to that. The stress weeds in my head was using that as an excuse because they knew that something was coming in that could potentially kick them out.
Right. Yep. And there we were. And you used some colorful language about 3 sessions, 4 sessions. Yep. Yep. And we got to work. We just started doing the TRTP process. We started it in person because there's nothing like checking someone out face to face. And then we were online towards the end. So you didn't have to do that drive. Um, how did you find the process itself? Was it difficult, distressing, doable?
Well, my initial reservations was allayed in the way that it, see, normally I think, okay, effort in, return out. And I was of the opinion you got to work hard to get something back. And so there I was laying there doing nothing. And, it wasn't unpleasant, but I'm like, has anything changed?
Yeah.
But before I did this process, Judith, I had written down all the things that were in my life that I didn't like, that were doing, that I was, triggering me, listing out all these things. And I just noticed that it was like there was an eraser coming in, just rubbing out those things. And I was not doing them, that I wasn't even, I was unaware that I was not doing them. It's just that people around me seemed to be enjoying my company a whole lot more. Kids were doing better at school. So it was strange for me to experience something that was effortless but had such a return. It was, I'm like, is this even happening? What's going on here? So it was strange for me because up until that point, I'm thinking, effort in, effort out. To have something that's so effortless that just literally comes in with an eraser and erases something out like it was never there. That was particularly interesting to have that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So confusing, surprising, um, but not unpleasant.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people say that the people around them are more aware and amazed by the results because it happens not consciously. We're not trying to make these changes. We
You've just got to
reconnect.
try harder. That's off far out.
Yeah. And so it just happens. The the reconnecting self to self. I mean, with trauma, as Gabor Mate says, who's one of the top trauma experts in the world, it's not so much what happens to us, but being alone in that. And with trauma, somehow there's this disconnect from self, from body, from self in every dimension. And with that, of course, there's the disconnection from everything else, everyone else. When I was in the throes of my PTSD breakdown, I was surprised that people could see me because I felt like a dead person just wandering around. So that disconnection is key. And what TRTP does is reconnects and takes the distress out of the past. And I'm not doing that anymore.
Well, look, Judith, if I could offer something,
please, Tim.
When you're in your PTSD, when I was in my PTSD, you're so focused on something outside of you, you're so scanning for threat, you're disconnected from your own body. Okay, and there's all sorts of crazy stuff happening to your own body, and you're not even aware of it because you're so connected out there.
Yeah.
And our bodies are plenty powerful, but if we're not connected to them, to me, mental health is quite simple. It's how connected away from your body you are. When you're actually connected into your body and those blockages are removed, oh wow, man, we got everything we need right here, baby. This is where we live. And I guess, you know, within that, we are naturally energetic, but I don't want to say naturally, we accumulate blockages. And healers are the ones that simply remove those blockages so our wondrous body can do what it naturally does. It can self-heal, it can self-regenerate. But remember how I said there's a whole economy based on us being disempowered?
Yep.
When
the
you
ill health economy.
Yeah, right. So when you truly remove the blockages from somebody and they connect to their power, you don't need a lot of resales. And what's a marketer's goal? Their goal is to get repeat sales. Now, and this is what I didn't discover until I had a chronic injury, is that we're not currently we're not currently in an age of information. We are in an age of marketing. The first 6 pages of Google are marketers. And marketers know how to reach out and touch you where you live, you know, speak those unspoken words around your heart. They've hacked the algorithm. You know, they'll have all these, you know, testimonials saying, oh, that speaks my language. And they'll promise, and you'll hand over your money, and years later you're still doing the same thing, but you're not connected to the power you were promised, and you end up blaming yourself.
Yeah.
And this is where guys just give up. But a healer, they're not as obvious. They're not necessarily on the first page of Google. But what they have is a very powerful connection to something, they've mastered a connection to something very powerful. And it might have taken them 10, 20, 30 years to master that, but they can give that to you in far less time because they know they're human. They know their energy is not enough for two, but they're able to be that connection point to that powerful thing. And once you have that, whoa, stand back and watch the show. You know, what I love about removing blockages and the energy levels naturally pick up is everybody has what I call seeds of greatness inside of them, seeds of uniqueness. And those seeds are laying dormant until the right energetic levels are, you know, are in place. And so what happens is once you get that healing, once you get those blockages removed, all those wonderful seeds of greatness, seeds of uniqueness just flourish quite naturally because that's what you're built to do. But you can't do it if you're all blocked up and you don't have any energy and you're feeling all alone and you're not sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah. And you explained soon after you went through TRTP and experienced that, you described PTSD as, you said, here's how it is. You've got your laptop and you've got every tab open, every app open, and you're wondering why the next web page isn't downloading properly. You're getting glitches. Why? Because internally, you've got every app open, every page open, every tab, You think you're running on 100% energy and 100% bandwidth, but it's all being taken up
Yeah.
unconsciously. There's a lot of energy going into just surviving. Threat aware, where's the danger, where's the danger, where's the danger, all the time. So you can't relax. Fight and flight going all the time, like the accelerator and brake to the floor all the time. Takes a lot of energy. And you said what TRTP did for you is a total reboot. Turn it off and turn it on, and there you have 100% energy, 100% bandwidth, and it's a different experience after that.
Oh, absolutely. It's not like it gives you more energy. You're just no longer wasting energy on all the crap that doesn't serve you.
Yeah.
You know,
I
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I used to describe it as I'd be holding balloons underwater all the time. And you'd reach the crisis of exhaustion, and they'd all just pop up and you're right back where you started.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a lot of energy to just be in that survival mode. Just all energy going into just existing and getting through the day that takes so long. It rolls out in front of you. What were some of the differences that you found in yourself? You said people were happier in your company, more relaxed in your company.
Yeah. So, like I said, I had a whole list of stuff that I noticed was being erased, but because it was so easy and effortless, I was part of going, is even a thing? But I did notice people around me were just it's like the old thing, you change something inside of you, the world changes. You
Funny
know,
that.
everything seemed so much warmer. Everything seemed a lot more effortless. Um, and I kept on sort of going, is this even real? Like, because it was so counter to my idea of, work hard, get results. So I was sort of challenging my own reality, but I couldn't ignore the patterns that were happening outside of me. So yes, kids, you know, you could sit with them. Partner, you could be with her, and I could catch myself when something it's like there was more distance. Like if something was coming in to annoy me, it's a very different experience when you see it 2 kilometers away than when it's 2 centimeters away. So
Yeah.
there was a distance between me and the stresses. I'd see it coming further away. I'd be able to deal with it a lot more. And I just noticed I was waking up with far less stress and anxiety. Like there wasn't, like I said, it wasn't all that bandwidth wasted on crap that wasn't serving me. And so, with more energy became more options. I wasn't just, if it's not going my way, then I'll get angry, which always helps, right? No.
That'll
Um,
fix it.
yeah, no. Getting angry was like writing a check for $1,000 when you've only got two in the account. That was my experience of it. It just puts you further in debt. So there was I just found myself with a lot more options in situations because I'm very performance driven about doing the job. So when I was moving into spaces where I wanted to perform, there was a lot more options either side of me due to less energy being wasted on all the crap that may or may not happen and the threat response and the disconnection,
Yeah.
from inside myself. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And another veteran I worked with, the first veteran I worked with, he was in the SAS in Rhodesia. And when I met him, I think Steve, he wouldn't mind me saying his name. He's actually a practitioner now and a trainer in TRTP, Steve Gardner. And when I met him, when he was around 60, he had a thing about helicopters. If a helicopter, this was decades after the war, if a helicopter came over, he would want to dive under a parked car. He was out of there. And we did TRTP, and he thought it can't be this easy because he had the rage and all of that for decades. So he left my rooms and went straight to the cinema to watch a film that had just been released, Saving Private Ryan.
All right, gee whiz.
And he has a background in science. He's a scientist, an agronomist, and he wanted to test it. He thought, this can't be right. I'll put myself at risk, could set me back a long way, but I'm going to go and see that movie and see what happens. I'm going to test it. So he sat there bracing himself, waiting for the trigger, and nothing happened. And he walked out. He thought, that can't be right. So he bought another ticket and went into the next session.
That's hilarious.
And he sat there and he started to enjoy it. He thought, this is really good. It's very realistic. And he sent me a message as he left the cinema, having seen it twice. This shit works. Because there was nothing. There was no distress. So, yes. And so
actually, there's a good way to put it. Your triggers just sort of disappear without you even knowing.
About trying.
Yeah. That's probably a good way to say it.
Yeah. I remember walking down the street with him. We were getting some takeaway, and a helicopter came straight up the street, really low. And he stood in the middle of the road, said, it's just a bloody helicopter. Nothing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah. You've met Steve, I think. So what are you up to now, Tim? You've got the breath work in bed behind you. And I know you're doing extraordinary work with breath work and with cold.
Oh, look, just like yourself, Judith, getting people into their natural state, having people discover their own sovereign power by simply removing blockages. That's what I'm doing. But I'm doing my joy is breath work. So helping people sleep better is a passion of mine, because I see, everyone holds a different piece of the wellness pie. I see sleep as the soil from which everything grows. Now, in the Special Forces, we knew nothing about the science of sleep. But we just knew if we could deny the enemy sleep for 3 nights, it would mess them up better than a bullet. And then I come back to Australia and I see so many people not sleeping well, and there's no seen enemy. But then I start seeing, well, we're a lot more suggestible when we're fatigued. We're a lot less sovereign when we're not sleeping well. So I thought, to get people's power back, and the best way I've found to create that state of sleep is through breath work. And for me, it's not the big things you do, it's the small things you do, it's the micro habits that you do over time that have this really massive accumulative effect. And so I've simply thought, well, I'm not the powerful one in this scenario. I see myself as the person that introduces you to the love of your life. Okay, and you're going to have that wonderful relationship with your lungs for the rest of your life. And I've created an online resource for people to access that. It simply asks you, when do you want to sleep? When do you want to wake up? And then we take care of the rest. It just falls out of your phone at the right time. You hit that button to go to sleep, that little notification, and then it'll guide your breath in a certain way to create. It'll turn your bed into a pillow. Like literally tonight, I love the immediacy of breath work. It can literally get you a better night's sleep tonight, turn that bed into a cloud. And then when you're getting out of bed, there's a certain breath work that turns that, feeling of heavy lead into absolute gold. And you're starting the day with a connection to your own body. Because I knew when I used to wake up and I'd feel that weight of my own body and I was really struggling, the first few hours of the day, I'd kind of just ride off. So to have that little easy thing to connect to your lungs is for me, a very important way to have people flourish, to have those seeds of greatness, seeds of uniqueness flourishing just with simple things like connecting to your breath and improving your sleep.
And there's the app. If people
Oh yeah,
want
so anyone can go to their phone and look up 3 words, breath work in bed. Look up those 3 words. It'll ask you when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up, and it'll just fall out of your phone with ease and grace. I can't do what you do, but if I can help you sleep better, then you're going to be able to bring your gifts into the world even better.
Thanks, Tim. And could you step us through an exercise?
Sure.
Breathing.
Oh, I'd be okay. My humble brag, my party trick is showing people how to completely relax their body in 3 breaths. Too good to be true.
Too good to be true. These
All
people
right.
with their too good to be true claims.
Okay. So we're gonna have a lived experience. So my only request is, if you're doing this, Be seated in a safe environment. Don't be driving, operating heavy machinery, or cutting up carrots. And breath work is really easy, but because we've been doing it our whole lives, it's our oldest habit. And so just consider the possibility that for your whole life, you've actually been breathing wrong. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to use all my breathwork coach superpowers to have you take a full breath of air. And we're going to do 3 of these, and we're going to discover, we're actually going to feel, we're not just going to talk about this, we're going to feel what breath can do. But before we do this, I ask 3 simple questions because this is going to be a new way of breathing, and breathing is kind of your oldest habit. I have to ask permission. Do you give your physical body permission to be completely nourished by your breath?
Absolutely. I'm sure
Okay.
everybody here would say, absolutely. Bring it
And
on.
anyone listening, this is if you're about to do the exercise, this is part of the process of receiving your own goodness and seeing your own power. Um, do you give your conscious mind permission to be completely nourished by your breath?
Yes,
Great. Do you give your unconscious mind permission to be completely nourished by your breath?
absolutely.
Fantastic. So this is going to be easy and effortless. All it's going to be is starting by simply breathing in and out. All right, congratulations. You took a conscious breath. So do you remember how I said when you're getting stressed and you're focusing outside of your body, we forget about our breathing.
Mm.
Okay, so being aware of your breath is the first step to reconnecting. And if you saw someone on the street going, they're about to freak out, right? But it doesn't matter if you shallow breathe fast or slow. Shallow breathing sends a signal to your system that we're in fight or flight. And it's really hard to learn new things, adapt to new environments when we're in fight or flight. So, what I'm going to get you to do now is when we breathe in, just breathe in again and again and again and again. So, give that a try. Breathe in and then breathe in more, 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 and just let it out. Nice work. Now, did you notice a little bit of extra space opening up in your top third of your chest?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so we'll call that first in and out your primary inhale, and when you breathed in more, your secondary inhale. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we're going to smooth that out together. So I'm going to get everyone to blow everything out and then breathe in primary and secondary in one motion. So let's blow everything out, blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out, and then start breathing in primary, secondary, all through your nose, and then if it feels good, let it out with a sigh. Nice work. Okay. Sometimes we see teeth after that because it makes you smile. All right. Now, again, what I love about my job, Judith, is I show people how wondrous their body is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that in their thumb and 2 fingers, this pinching motion is a turbo button. Okay. And that turbo button is connected to your secondary inhale. So what we're going to do now is we're going to blow it out, and as we breathe in, we're going to breathe in primary, and when it comes to our secondary inhale, we're going to hit those turbo buttons as hard as we can, pinch them as hard as we can, and notice the impact it's got on our secondary inhale.
Mm-hmm.
Is everyone clear on that?
Mm-hmm.
So with your turbo buttons ready, blow everything out. Out, 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 out. Start breathing in, then hit your turbo buttons, breathe in, and let it go. Now, did you notice when you hit those turbo buttons, the impact on your secondary inhale?
Could take in more air.
Absolutely. Who knew we had turbo buttons? Who knew we were created pretty wonderfully?
Yeah.
Now, we're going to juice up that secondary inhale even more. Okay. And this is breathing through the nose as we breathe in. We're going to hit those turbo buttons and we're going to look to the ceiling. Okay. We're going to look up and look to the ceiling up. And if you've got a nice chair, lean back a little bit. Okay. So we're going to create extra space for that secondary inhale.
Mm-hmm.
So blowing it all the way out, 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 blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out, 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 out. Start breathing in, Hit those turbo buttons, raise your chin, raise your chest, lean back, open, open, open. Hold it, wriggle your shoulders, wriggle your shoulders. And if it feels good, let it out with a sigh. Did you notice a little bit of extra space opening up?
Yes, and lightheadedness.
Do you notice a little bit more energy through your system right now?
Yes, a definite buzz.
Okay. So what we're doing, Judith, proper breath gives you proper alignment. We're not just getting more energy through our oxygen, we're getting more energy because we're an electrical circuit. We've got nerves running through us, and those nerves are like hose pipes. You know, if you pinch your garden hose, there's not much water going through.
Yep.
Our nerves work very similar. So when we're hunched over, we pinch off those nerves and we have less energy through us.
Right.
So when we open up, when we breathe properly, we allow our natural energy state to flow through us. So remember how I said we're naturally energetic? It's just how much blockages we have. So I notice when I've got stuff in my head that I don't like, I'll naturally hunch over. And what does that do? That pinches off my lungs, it pinches off my nerves.
Yep.
Less energy, less options. I get more reactive. But proper breathing opens everything up and gives you more energy. So that's why I don't just call this the secondary inhale. I call this the breath of possibility.
Right.
So when I have stuff that's impossible in my head, I really breathe it in, hold it, move it around the place, integrate that energy into that which is impossible. And you know, if I'm out in public, these little turbo buttons become my medicine pumps. So, you know, I'm human, something might piss me off, but what I'll do is I'll interrupt those thoughts in my head by discreetly snorting and bringing that air in. And it's like that snort dispels the crap that's in my head.
So that's great, Tim. These are some tools that everyone can use, even in a queue somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Waiting for
Anywhere
something.
you go, you can use this.
Yep. And so thank you for that.
Well, there's one last
Takeaway.
thing I need to add to that,
Okay.
Judith, because behind our nose, we have sinuses, right?
Yeah.
And those sinuses, when I was in combat as a professional fighter, my coach would say, before you do a combination, do a big snort through the nose. And that draws the air over the sinuses straight into the brain. Whether that was scientifically proven or not, it worked in combat. And I just want to do that with you now. So on the inhale, I want you to double the speed of it, but really snort through those, over those sinuses. Okay. So just one last one. So we're going to breathe out, have your turbo buttons ready, and then breathing through your nose, double the speed of your inhale, open up, hit those turbo buttons, and then just wriggle it and let it out with a
Good stuff.
How are we going for time, Judith?
Well, we're nearly there. So we'll move along here, Tim. So thank you for that. Takeaway is always good, something that we can take and use, just that, breathe in and then top it up.
Yeah, using that through the nose. So that's the breath of possibility. Train that in your own time. I'll give a link for you guys to use later on, because the breath of possibility is one end of this. The other side of this is the breath of peace. So there's a way to integrate a deep sense of peace with that too. So I'll give you a link. I've made a little video you can watch in your own time, and that'll give people a very easy access to the complete relaxation in 3 breaths. So I've really just done half of it. So I've just shown half. So those people who are interested, click on that link that Judith will provide to this episode, and you can go full circle into that.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. And for others who are here who are also on a journey with their own trauma, or perhaps you are a practitioner getting frustrated that it's just taking too long to assist people through to the other side of their distress, and you're sitting there just getting incremental changes, that can be exhausting for the practitioner as well as for the person who's in that space of distress. So I'm just going to put up some links here in the chat One of them is for an ebook. If you just click on it, you'll get an ebook about TRTP and the training program pricing, how long are the courses, all of that sort of thing. So click on that link. I will just send it now to everyone. Why is that not going? Hosts and panelists. Panelists, good. So that link, we'll send it out to people as well as your link, Tim. The TRTPtherapy.com. You can go to TRTPtherapy.com and click on the training program details. TRTPtherapy.com, the training program details. So go well with that. And we'll send you Tim's details as well with that peace, breath of peace. Thank you very much for being here today, Tim.
Judith, I just see a little message there saying there's no links showing up. You might need to select all attendees to have that.
I have selected everyone, and there is an issue with there's no send button for some reason. Just turning off and going back to chat, putting in the link, and no, there's no send button. So I'll just say that again. If you go to trtptherapy.com, trtptherapy.com, and click on training program details. Thank you very much.
You know what? I might just try and send that from my end because I know I linked in TRTP training, was it?
trtptherapy.com.
Yep. Training. I'll grab that link and I'll stick it in there. Hopefully we can make that work.
Okay, Deborah, you're welcome. You've got breathing issues yourself. There we go. Thank you very much, Tim.
Yep, no problem at all.
Ali, who's here, and others who are here, Deborah, take a look at that and click on that and you'll get an ebook regarding all the training, etc.
And I've also just done a little cheeky sneak in there for my little website on there.
Wonderful.
You can download the app. So if you want to work with clients that are well rested, breathwork is a very easy and natural way to have them turning up well rested. It was something that I found worked very well with veterans, ensuring that they were sleeping during the experience, up until the experience and then post experience.
Yeah. It's the first rule of torture is sleep deprivation.
Oh, we are all on thin ice. The difference between you and me functioning normally and in a padded cell rocking back and forth is 3 nights sleep.
It's not a lot.
We're also incredibly tough that we can handle less, but we don't actually know we're cashing in our tomorrows to live today. Yeah. But Judith, look, I just want to thank you. Before anyone else saw the value in this, before anyone saw the value in you, you saw it. And you started growing it. And you started creating access for others. So all the other people that have come in after you are now, getting connected to something super valuable, super powerful. And if it does what I think it's going to do, it's going to have people seeing the value in themselves so they can flourish in their own lives. And I just want to acknowledge you for that.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. Yeah, it works. It takes a long time to get the research happening. Our first research project is about to be published in a major journal, and so more people can be helped. We don't have to be in pain. So thank you. Thanks, Tim. Always great to see you. Lots of love and talk to you soon.
Yep.
And thank you for joining us, those people who've invested their time today. Thanks. Go well. Bye.